Today is Tuesday, September 3rd, and you're listening to the Beer Temple Podcast.
Remember this is what we wanted. Remember this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again. Remember this is what we wanted. Remember this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again.
Hello, and welcome to the Beer Temple Podcast. I'm your co-host, Mike Shalau of Is Was Brewing, here with your other co-host, Chris Quinn of the Beer Temple.
What's up, Mike? How are you?
I'm great, Chris. How are you?
Couldn't be better.
That's what my dad says when if people ask him that question, and he means it.
And he means it.
Yeah. Another sick fade from the Fade Master. It's like riding a bike for all of us. We're back at it.
Mm-hmm.
Been a while.
Yep. It's been a while. It's our second been a while out of 3.
I will take the responsibility. I have been drowning a little bit, almost literally on Saturday. I got to explore the joys of taproom plumbing, and learn what a hydrojet is.
And how much they cost, more importantly.
How much they cost.
Who cares what they are? How much do they cost?
They cost
a lot.
A lot.
Yeah.
And it's not as fun as you would think a hydrojet would be.
Yeah, you don't ride it.
No, it's not like a spruce goose made out of water or something.
It's not like the world's largest ski-doo.
We're not like Mark Zuckerberg riding our jetpacks of water. You know?
Right, that would be cool.
That would be cool. But it's kind of the opposite. But anyway.
Well, the good news is we have some good beers here.
We do.
And since we haven't been on for a while, I'm sure there's tons and tons to talk about. So we can do that. And I don't believe we've talked about your Taproom opening, right?
I don't think so.
We talked
not
about kind of the cold open, but you were
Yeah.
very squirrely about wanting to talk about it on the show, and I respected that.
Sure.
Although I didn't really respect it, but I respected it and didn't say anything.
Hey, you didn't respect it, but you let me do it.
Yes, exactly. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, we're officially open. 5121 North Ravenswood. Don't send your letters there or your electronic letters there. I will lose them.
Yes.
But
I've been there a couple times. Kids have been there a couple times.
Yeah. There's some pictures of you drinking some of our most exclusive beers in the most exclusive serving format.
That's right. I checked it in. My kids have also been there having slushies.
I mean, they didn't have the same slushies you had, though.
Theirs were NA.
Yeah.
Yeah, those were NA. So, yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it's close. You're close to me now.
Yeah. Yeah, in our neighborhood.
Yes.
Not the closest brewery to you, but we're the closest one to your heart.
Yes, exactly. I think you're the 4th closest, no, 5th closest brewery to me.
And we're like, what, a mile and a quarter?
I think it was a 7-minute bike ride.
Yeah. Yeah, it was It was a wild opening. There was a line out the door for about 6 hours, which there didn't need to be, but people chose to form the line from where you ordered beer out the door instead of curling it around inside.
Yeah, that was tough for me. I had to turn my back.
Yeah.
And just not watch.
You also used the term, I got to pull rank here a couple times and jump the line.
No, I think I...
Glad to do it.
I don't know. Did I say I have to pull rank and did that? I definitely stood in line for a half hour at least once.
Yeah. You did it once and you're like, I'm never doing this. As we've talked about on the show, I'm like, I wouldn't have waited in line a half hour in my own brewery.
I think what I did was I saw people in line I knew. I tacked my orders on to theirs and then paid for their beers. Is actually what I did.
It's a pro move.
I said, put it on my tab, get whatever you want, and get this too.
Yeah, I mean, it was us doing our best, and there was still quite a wait for beers. It was. I never in my wildest dreams would I have guessed there would have been that many people there to drink saisons, but here we are.
There you are. That's cool. And then, I was there a couple weeks later on a Sunday, I believe. It was a very nice crowd. And I can give you my notes after the show if you like, but I think there'll be things that you'll have to just, figure out on your own. So it's, but a great space. People are having a good time, which is like by far the most important.
Yep.
Unless you're like me and like have some sort of just mental block where you can only look at things that need to be improved upon and can't ever enjoy something.
Yeah, I mean, I'm enjoying it for a good chunk of it. There are moments where I'm like, oh, well, this has to get fixed and this has to be turned into this. We got to do this. Obviously, we need another wire rack in there. We got to do this and move this out of there. Why is that there? That shouldn't be there. But it's been
What's the biggest thing that you want to change about the tap room? Like what's
plumbing?
Well, okay. Yes, that's true. But now that you fixed that, hopefully.
The biggest thing...
let's say like small or process-wise, not like, I want to put in a roof deck. Not something like that.
We had this room that's like it's like a mechanical room, and it was just a mess. We fixed it. It was just like getting some wire racking and organizational systems in there. But then we also have this like second room where we had those like kind of Munich style foldable like tables out there, and we don't really know what to do with that yet.
That room,
yeah. Right now, it's we don't have an outdoor space. And the weather right now is beautiful, so there's a big garage door in there, so we're just kind of use that as our quasi-outdoor space. But I don't know if that's going to, like, fly in the winter. Like, we're not going to have the garage door open. Like, what's the pull going to be? Like, how are we going to use that space? What's the best use for it? Like, because you don't just want to be paying 900 square feet of dead space, right? So how do we make it an attractive space for people when... it's not like a nice breeze, or we're not a new brewery anymore, and they're willing to sit at these weird picnic tables that are inside.
Right.
So that's the one thing that I'm most worried about taproom-wise. Otherwise, systems are decent. It's an easy bar to operate. It's just
pretty compact.
It's just beer. The only confusing part for training people is that there's like 130 bottles that they don't know as intimately as I do. So when someone says it, they're all like organized and you can train them where they go. But that's one of those things of like, what is that beer? I've never even heard of that one. So that's not a huge problem. And they're learning. The people we've hired have learned incredibly quickly. Like, I'm very impressed by their ability to like
pick up
things that it took me 5 years to to know. And then just getting better at the hospitality part of it and having more beer. Like we're going through beer way faster than I thought. So I've had to brew the last couple of weeks. We still only have 2 tanks operational. The brewery isn't up and running yet. Had some issues with a used equipment supplier not delivering the things they say they were going to deliver, and that put us back. But hopefully in the next few weeks we'll be up and running in the actual production facility and make up some of the beer that we've decimated. I thought we had a lot of beer, and then we opened a tap room. We did not have a lot of beer. We haven't run out of beer by any means, but
nice to get that money coming in, though.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's a completely different world in the way we were operating. Making 7 barrels of beer, you're selling in cases of 500 milliliter bottles and a couple of sixtels is very different than being able to sell beer directly to people.
Yep.
It's also more expensive to have staff and a legit space where you have to pay real rent.
Yeah,
and
true. Yeah. Mm-hmm. For sure.
But it's been great so far.
Great. And how long? You've been open since
officially a couple weeks.
Yeah,
like a little over 2 weeks.
Very awesome. Very cool.
No major incidents.
No. I mean. No.
Except for Serge skipping out on his tab.
All right. I heard about that.
Who would have thought there would be 2 Sergios with tabs open at the same time?
We have some beers here. I'll probably open them. Some of my favorites. And then one that Serge hasn't had in a while. And a friend brought him a can. Should probably let him do that one. That's the Heady Topper. He wants me to do it. Okay.
Do you want me to help? I'm going to pour some.
And then we also have Headhunter and Beechwood Amalgamator, and I think those are 5 days from each other.
We need more glasses, don't we?
Well, to do all three, I guess we do.
There's
We can do two, and then we could do a third. Or we can go get 3 more glasses, I suppose. I had 2 cans on this tray, so then I got 6 glasses, and whatever. We can get more if we need it. So I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, things have been crazy with me too. I think basically by the end of the year, everybody in a like supervisory position will before the end of the year will be someone different.
Well, they're not all leaving. Some people are
No.
changing roles. Some people
No, most aren't leaving. But yeah, there's just everybody's role is basically changing. So, and it's all happening kind of all at the same time. So
That's how it happens, right?
apparently,
When it rains, it pours.
yeah. So apparently,
It's
so
nice
that's
to know
a
that
joy.
the further you get into owning a business, the easier it gets, right?
I think for some people, I think for the ones who are doing it right,
I think those people just own less dynamic businesses, is what I like to
perhaps. I don't know.
think. This is the amalgamator search.
And then here's the headhunter.
So we're just going to have 2 gross beers.
Yep, we'll have 2 grossies. I also submitted to the podcast awards
Right.
an entire day before I needed to.
Could you tell when we submitted that an entire day before I needed because Doug emailed us that things are...
Well, it was on my... I hadn't forgotten about
Yeah,
it.
no.
But I was also... I think it was on the... I had friends coming into town that evening and for the weekend, so I knew if I didn't do it... I basically did it within the last 1 or 2 hours that I realistically could have. So
That's more on brand.
yeah. Yeah.
Could you feel the other podcasts that had submitted quaking in their boots as our reign of victory of the times we have submitted?
You know
And
what?
like
I
our-
wish I could say that I did, but the fact of the matter is I wasn't even thinking about them. Didn't even care.
That's right. That's a better answer.
Yeah. So yeah. So it was a whole big, thought about which ones to submit for about 10 minutes and then submitted them and we'll see. We'll see. I have no idea when we'll see or if we'll see, but because I don't know when they announce it. But anyway.
I mean, if we don't hear back that we won, I think they probably just decide not to do it this year.
Probably.
Yeah.
That's the case. I think,
That's most
probably.
likely the case.
Yeah. And
Which episodes did you submit?
oh boy, I wanted to do the barrel-aged one, but everyone said, "Oh, that's too long ago." I think, and I was like, I looked and I was like, "No, it's not." And then I looked and it was too long ago. They were right. They knew the show better than me, so I didn't do that one. That was your question, right? Which one didn't I do?
Yes. Which ones didn't you do?
I didn't do that. I did
You didn't do the
the
episode
one
with
about
Tony
England.
McGee. Okay, you did do the one about England.
I did the one about England. I did the one Deep Thoughts with Matt Tanaka, Gabriel, and from Half Acre, and Jacob from Cruz Blanca.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did a third one, which was something. I don't remember.
It was that the one that we had Brindleson and
Yes.
Gallagher
Yeah,
and
so you know.
Jude on. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, we're
The
making
one where
content
the
here.
one where I
just-
fanboyed with Matt Brindleson and asked him who his favorite brewers were, and do you remember the time?
and he
that,
said Chris Quinn. And
"Yeah." I said, you remember the time that you made Wookie Jack?
Remember the time you made XPA? He's like, yeah, that was like literally 2 weeks ago.
I'm drinking it right now.
Yeah. Thank you for doing that. I was listening to a podcast that won't be named that had one of the brewers from Fatheads on it.
No, fuck that. You can name them. Name names. Beer and Brewing Podcast.
Craft Beer and Brewing Podcast. But as we look at this and like in our talks about head retention and lacing,
Yes.
something interesting that came up that is very inside baseball is
Well, yeah.
downstream hop products, like downstream Tetra that you add to a beer after it's more or less finished, that increases the foam stability and the lacing. And as you look at these, like, I don't know if Amalgamator uses it or not, but there's very obviously a difference in the head retention and the lacing I'm seeing in them. So I've been now looking into how do I buy the tiniest amounts of downstream hop products to put into saisons. But I thought that was something that, like, maybe we hadn't thought about in our war against bad lacing.
Right, for sure. Yet another thing, because the Headhunter does have insane head retention, even in these little, like, half pours and stuff like that.
It's a good beer.
It's a very good beer, yeah. So who was it that you were listening to? It was Beer and Brewing Podcast. Who was the person that we were?
I don't know, what's his name, the head brewer for Fatheads. I can't remember.
I was going to say Matt Young, but it wasn't.
No, it's not Matt Young.
Now it messes.
It's Matt something.
See, now I can't be as angry because I don't know his name.
It's Matt Cole.
Matt Cole.
Matt King Cole.
Which I believe is the guy we were trying to get on our show.
I believe so.
And we were told that he doesn't do podcasts. Mm-hmm. But apparently he does do podcasts. He just doesn't do this podcast. But guess what? We're going to get him on this podcast.
Well, to be fair, they say he doesn't do podcasts. So he's done one podcast.
Well, he's going to do this one.
Yeah.
And then he'll be a liar.
Whether he
and
likes
I
it or
will call
not.
him out.
Whether he likes it or not.
Okay.
You're going to call him out?
Yeah, I'll say, do you want a mean question or a meaner question? And then, depending on what he says, I'll say, what's up with your branding? Or I'll say, and then you can guess if that's the mean or the meaner one. Then I'll leave.
I mean,
we'll hang up on the Skype call.
You do have some sort of knack for talking to people whose beer you respect very deeply and immediately getting into fights with them.
Well, yeah, that was Lars from Trumer. The first time I met him, I started to get in an argument with him about, of all things, Tank geometry. Me and a head brewer for Trumer.
Who I'm sure you were right.
I was right.
Yeah.
I was right. That's the crazy thing. He was saying that all tanks should be cylindrical, and I said no. I said that we're losing something in the character of beer and the regional just differences and kind of beauty by everything going to cylindrical, and how everything in the U.S., regardless of style, is cylindrical, and that's not necessarily a good thing. And he said, no, it is a good thing. It's the most reliable, it's the most replicatable, it's the most consistent, it's the one to do. Very German answer, Austrian, whatever. And I was like, well, I had just come from England, too. Not this last time, but the previous time. And I had been up in Burton, and I had been at just different places and saw all these, like, rectangles and open fermenters and rooms that had dangerously high amounts of CO2 just in them. And I felt lightheaded when I went in there.
Got a cheap one.
Yeah. and just to me, it seemed obvious that it was just that it also on that trip, it was very obvious to me that these were kind of relics of the past.
Yeah.
There was a definite sadness to a lot of these breweries, like in me, that I was going to. And in fact, in my mind, I was thinking of a couple places. One was Marston's. They have now sold, and they don't have their Burton Union anymore. And the second was, what is the name of that brewery? They did a sour beer for artisanal imports, even though they were a mild brewery. And I'll remember it eventually, but they've also now gone out of business as well. And they were like the local brewery. They made bitters and milds and stuff like that. And and they've also closed. And there's new U.S. style or U.S. influenced breweries there, and my guess is a lot of them are probably doing cylinder conical stainless and stuff like that. And I think there's something to lament about the other stuff going away, even though it's not as consistent and perfect and not the best. But
yeah, there's something like almost prophetic and poetic about the idea that we should all be using cylindrical conicals as it applies to like Homo sapiens and trying to dominate our surroundings all the time, right? Like a lot of those more romantic ideas of beer production that you were kind of mentioning, or like, open top saison fermentation or something like that, is more coexisting with the things and the situations you have and the ingredients you have and the processes you have, whereas the cylindrical conical is very much like we dominate this environment. We create exactly the environment that is supposed to be there, and we control it.
I know you're top cropping yeast, but now you're a bottom cropping yeast.
Right, and you're going to like it.
And you're going to like it.
Yeah. And there definitely is something romantic to be lost there. Now, he's also not wrong in that it is the most consistent way to do it. Mm-hmm. But there's we genuinely could not make the beers we make taste the way they taste and the way that we want them to taste if we were using like traditional cylindrical conical closed top fermenters. Like they are conical and they are like cylindrical, like they have like big open manways on the top that we had eventually close, but due to first the height and width of them, and like the ability to reduce the pressure by fermenting with an open top, you get different characters out of these yeasts. And you can't, there's no other way that I've found, or that most people, I don't know anyone that I know of has found, to replicate that without doing it with that tank geometry. So you're both right.
Yeah.
But then you should get mad at Matt Cole about, he can talk about his float tank and his open top fermenters for his Hefeweizen.
It was Elgood's brewery. That was the brewery that
Elgood's.
Elgood. Yeah. That's a shame.
What do you think about these beers?
Well, I will say we should
good.
say that as I'm drinking the Beechwood, the lacing has come along. So the foam when we poured it wasn't as strong. You also poured that one. I poured the Headhunter, so maybe I poured it more properly.
I think we both just poured them straight down the middle, Mosher style, didn't we?
Maybe, I don't know. But
Serge seemed to like his quite a bit. He's already done.
They're both good.
Fantastic.
The Amalgamator is less bitter than I've had in past batches.
It says 70 IBUs. That's the
I
last
know.
one.
I know. It doesn't quite taste like it. Wow. They're both quite good.
Yeah.
Do you have a preference between the two? They're both pretty darn good.
I think they're both very good. I would be elated to drink either of these at most points. Next to each other, I think I do appreciate the Headhunter a little bit more.
Okay.
I think from making beers that are like finish at zero Plato finishing gravity and dry, I've come to really appreciate the things that malt character and sweetness can add to something. The way it's presented, the Beechwood seems to be quite a bit leaner and drier.
Yeah.
And
less bitter at the same time.
Yeah, and I think if I was drinking it in the sun in San Diego, I would have a different answer.
True.
But we're, it's 75 degrees. I guess that's what it would be in San Diego, maybe hotter. But we're in Chicago, indoors, and there's something about the Headhunter that's hitting really nice right now. How about you?
We're talking about like A+ and A++.
Right.
But I don't think there's any.
There's no losers here.
No losers, but I've also made it pretty clear that my favorite is the Headhunter, and it was proven again today. I mean, I like it. I've had, I think, batches of Headhunter I like more than this one. I'm getting to that point where I think I know both of these beers that intimately. Yeah, I like the Headhunter more myself. How about you, Serge? Do you have a preference between
Serge's
Amalgamator? No, he likes the Headhunter. Okay, so it's 3 for 3.
Wow.
There you go.
Look at us.
Look at us. Yes.
Come on, Matt. Where you at, Matt? We know Matt listens to the podcast, right?
We know he does. That's why he doesn't want to come on. I guess. That seems to make sense.
Can you blame him?
Right.
No, we're transitioning.
Yeah. So there was something I was reading about today. I was curious what you guys think of we'll find out what Serge thinks about it after the fact. No, Serge, you're getting the can, dude.
Wait, did the mic pick that up?
I think the mic might have picked that up.
Oh.
So Ravinia Brewing has to change their name officially.
Yeah.
And I saw Mike Zoller was talking about it, and there were some angry comments, kind of putting down Ravinia Festival for making them change and stuff like that. So I got to thinking about it.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I'm going to sound like a real jerk. But I don't have much sympathy. I do have sympathy for all of the expenses and stuff that Ravinia Brewing has had to put up with.
Agreed.
And that they're going to have to do to rename and stuff like that. But I think that this is something they could have so easily avoided so early on. And not only that, probably made an ally out of Ravinia Festival.
Right.
Just by, not opening up. I mapped it today, too. It's like a 5-minute car ride. It's, right down the street from them.
And that was, part of the agreement that they signed, right? Was that they wouldn't open brick and mortars with the name Ravinia.
Yeah.
That's what I think I remember reading, is that, they could use the name, they could use it to make beer, but they couldn't open, physical locations.
Even the logo, wouldn't you then, in that case, make the logo as opposite of Ravinia Festival as you could? And instead, they made it reminiscent of, to my mind.
Right. And this seems like one of those things of being well, Ravinia is the neighborhood or the region or whatever.
Sure it is. Sure.
But that's not what it's not what most people think of when they think of Ravinia. They think of the festival. And they did own the trademark on it, if I know correctly, and maybe they shouldn't have been allowed to have it, but they have it, and the only way you get to keep your trademarks is to affirmatively defend them. So, I mean, this is another weird situation where I don't like to defend landlords, but in some situations, you sign the lease and you got to deal with the consequences. You were, I don't know. This is a weird. There's some very loud idling happening.
Yeah.
But
is he listening to Heavy D? Is that? Oh, I thought it was Now That We Found Love by Heavy D is what they're playing on these big Harley guys, but I don't think it is what they're playing. But sounds like it.
But
Wish it was.
There are and these are rules where it feels like some sort of larger entity is using it as a cudgel against some smaller entity, but trademark behaves like that sometimes. But also I have valuable intellectual property that I've in my realm was important to me. I would defend it against anything.
Right. What does the other thing I'm thinking of is using it as a cudgel, like you said. What does Ravinia Festival, in this case, have to gain by going after Ravinia Brewing? It's really, they don't gain anything. They just prevent. Right. A loss, kind of, or confusion or something. That's why would they go after them?
Well, you have to defend your mark or else you lose your mark.
Right.
Right? So if you allow someone to use your trademark in an adjacent field, which would be a musical festival that serves beer, if a brewery then used it, then neither of you could have the trademark. So you have to affirmatively defend your mark or else the mark is deemed, the common good or the
sure. And then they have a restaurant and a brewery. And imagine if Ravinia started to have bands show up there.
Sure.
I mean, I think people could start getting maybe confused, or at least think that it's a second stage, or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's been plenty of cases where you see things like this, and you're like, is anything really gonna confuse the two?
Right.
Like Beguile's original name was Argyle, but Argyle Wines, sent them a cease and desist, and they had to change the name early on. But like, no one's ever going to think like the brewery in Chicago is owned by
Hop Butcher changed their name
right.
from South Loop Brewing.
Well, that was more because they couldn't get a trademark on that because that was untrademarkable. So they wanted something they could have actually a mark to defend. Yeah, it's all like stuff that when you start making beer, you don't think about. Like, I want to get into like the originality and defensibility of my trademark.
Are you going to trademark the words "is" and "was"?
I don't think we could. Like, I don't. I mean, maybe the slash. We could probably get a trademark on like the words with the slash in them, or the way they're presented, or brand dress or whatever that's called. But I mean, I definitely can't trademark the words "is" and "was."
Should go for it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone wants to steal it,
Put the system on trial.
I said I would defend it earlier, but I'd be like, could you not?
Please?
Yeah, please. I mean, our SEO is already bad enough. Why would we want to get a trademark too? Yeah, I mean, this is. It'll be interesting to see what they turn into, and honestly, it will probably be more interesting to people in the city of Chicago than Ravinia.
Yeah. It just struck me as kind of like either I don't know the facts, so these are all takes, okay?
Spicy ones.
But it like thinking through, it was like, well, it looks like the two had been in contact before the first place even opened.
Right.
So at that point, they could have changed their name before they ever opened. And if they didn't and wanted to be right next to them, it just seems a lot more likely that either someone did want to make money off the association with the Ravinia Festival, or was just so pig-headed that it's like one of these like mental things where if somebody tells you not to do something, now you're forced to do it, and you are you have no control over yourself because no one's going to tell me what to do. I can't think of any other reasons beside those two.
I mean, there could be like some short-sightedness involved. Typically, there's ways to mediate these things that don't have to involve like this drawn out of a process,
Right?
Especially when like there's one side that's clearly going to win. Like whether or not you think it's right or not. Like if there's one side that owns the mark and has told you to stop using it,
And is 100 times bigger than you.
yeah, I mean, you're never gonna win that. So maybe one of them's a lawyer and did all the work themselves or something. But
Sure, yeah,
who
that
knows?
could be the case.
But I remember there was a time.
But like,
I'll get
okay,
in trouble
even
for
so,
this,
but even maybe I'll save you from that then. But it's even if that was the case, what do you gain from it if you're not trying to have any people buy it because the names are similar? Like, oh, I'm going to Ravinia. I should definitely bring Ravinia beer, even if they're not. They think they're not owned. Like, even if you're like, listen, I'll do all the legal work myself. Like, even that elbow grease, like, there's a cost in time to that versus changing your name. I just don't see any when it was picked out that early. Like,
Right.
other people have changed their Maplewood changed their name too, right? And like it's
and like there was an agreement in place with the festival about that had parameters, right? And the time to either decide to change your name or define the direction of your business was when you made that agreement with a much more established entity that owns the trademark, right? So the fact that it came to this point where you're like, well, now we have to change our name, because we did all these things that we said we weren't going to do, like open brick and mortar locations, use the name, use this and put it in a way that is. I don't know all the parameters of the agreement, but in previous articles there were ones that were obviously that said they weren't supposed to have brick and mortar locations because they were a contract brewer originally. I mean, relatively early on in Pipeworks, we got a cease and desist from someone that said we couldn't use the word ninja.
Right.
And there was a way to negotiate it where they said, and maybe it's different when it's brewery to brewery, and there's more conviviality there, because that's just the nature of the way that we operate as businesses. But they were like, you can keep one, and they said, like, obviously your biggest ninja beer is Citra Ninja, so we were fine with you keeping that. And then it was a back and forth negotiation of like, well, actually, we'd like to keep Ninja versus Unicorn. And so then they were like, okay, well, you can do that, but you have to have, it always has to say this, like there's specific parameters where like you can keep using Ninja versus Unicorn, but it has to say something along the lines of Ninja versus Unicorn double IPA style ale is what they like finally were like, that's where we're putting our foot down. That has to be on every time you say Ninja versus Unicorn. It has to have all of those words with it, if you're allowed to do this carve out. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know. It's probably it works out where you don't really notice it because like it says it on the can, and it says NVU every other time.
Right.
It's become iconic enough where you could just get away with saying that. But there's ways to work through these things where you create. You know, you look forward at what your business is going to be and what you want to do with your business. You negotiate those things with the person if they're willing to negotiate, which it seems like Ravinia Vessel was somewhat willing to negotiate. But
maybe they were unrealistic. Let's say that because I think Ravinia Brewery says that they're, were changing their terms and that they were like ridiculous terms that they were asking for and stuff like that. So let's say they were. But then if you change the name, man, right. Don't get into the argument then.
Right, and like this is like obviously maybe this is hindsight, but like you have to have the foresight at that moment to be like, okay, if we're not allowed to have brick and mortar locations, and that's something we actually want to do with our business, then we probably should change the name now, because they certainly have established some sort of brand equity with the name Ravinia, even if it may be somewhat co-opted by the brand equity of Ravinia the festival. Right?
Sure.
Ravinia the brewery has established some brand equity there.
Sure.
But they spent years, establishing that brand equity when they could have. And that's the
name, part I feel bad about is that they have to spend money and lose all that. I do genuinely feel bad.
That stinks.
But it just seems like
without being on the inside,
to my hot takery, it's so easily,
Without being on the inside, it's hard to know what the conversations were or what they thought the realistic outcomes would be. But from the stories that I've read, it seems like it was almost an insurmountable thing, especially if once it turns adversarial too, where we're not. I think they sold Ravinia beer at the festival, which then further muddied things for both sides. But if it wasn't going to be like a full-on partnership and agreement and convivial, like we'll do these things and we will never step on these toes, but let us have at least like one or two locations, right? And we'll make sure it's like not the festival. I don't know. It's you never know what actually happened, but it does seem like one of these things of it should have been handled differently. But hopefully they come out the other side with like a different brand, like a vibrant new brand. They can get like some of that new brand energy going.
Exactly.
Taprooms are hot right now.
I've heard.
If you open them on the weekend where there's no other street festivals because of the DNC, people will show up.
There you are.
So just get
Insider's tip.
Get the DNC to come back.
Insider's tip. Let's. Before we do that, we had the Heady Topper. Mm-hmm. It's been a bit since I've had Heady Topper.
It's been a while.
What do you think? Your honest opinion.
Now, we're also drinking Amalgamator and Headhunter.
Yeah, that's kind of what I think, too.
I've said a few times on this show that my only trade ever as a just a consumer of beer was a 6-pack of Zombie Dust for a 4-pack of Heady Topper, and it made me never want to trade beer again because I just wanted the Zombie Dust. And, I think I feel the same way about this, where it's fine, and it's a good beer, but
to me, Heady Topper, in my mind, like maybe 5 or 6 years ago, started tasting different to me, and I think that there's a better chance that I had forgotten what it tasted like, and then I'm like, oh, I don't remember it tasting like this, and then it's tasted like that ever since to me, so it hasn't changed, at least since like 5 years ago. I don't know why they would change a thing about it. When you have something that good, I don't know why you would touch it. But it's I'm just not the biggest fan of Heady Topper. I really like Focal Banger, but Heady Topper.
How much of that do you think is like other beers getting closer to what Heady Topper tasted
be.
like? Because I remember like the thing I do remember from making that trade 10, 15 years ago was the texture was significantly different. There was something silkier and softer and
100%.
Noticeably different about it. I think more beers have gotten like Heady Topper in textural, more hoppy beers gotten like Heady Topper in textural parameters.
Yeah, I do remember.
Because this seems like not thin, but like it seems much more like other beers compared to the first time I had it. Where like,
and I do remember it felt softer, and I remembered having this very unique aroma to it. Where ever since I've kind of redefined what it tastes and smells like, there's like a husky graininess to it all the time that I taste, and I'm like, what is that? And
I don't know.
Yeah, but
I do understand. I get what you're saying, though.
It's still a treat to have it, though. You know,
absolutely.
Which is cool. I was talking to people about, like a lot of foodies versus a lot of beer people, and the consensus seems to be amongst multiple people that I know who deal with both. And I don't want to say, I can't say who it is because it's not fair to them because of what they've said. You'll know why. And it's basically like beer people are cool, food people suck. So I can't say who said it. But 3 different people who are in both spaces.
Is it Obama?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, when he during the DNC, he came by. We hung out in the back and
That's
drank
why you got
312.
so hard.
We drank 312.
Densely populated flavor.
Yeah. And that's what he brought to the beer summit. Don't you remember?
Yeah.
So I don't know where I was going with this, but
Beer people are cool. Everyone else sucks.
yeah. No, I guess my point being like the fact that I don't love a beer doesn't make me necessarily not like the brewery or not like it's funny or certainly the bar that's serving it to me, not necessarily unless it's like this bar like only serves beers that I don't like and also like don't like the taste of and don't like respect maybe. But like if someone has a beer on and you don't like it, that's just something that I think is nobody takes like, I don't know. It doesn't like, they don't assign necessarily blame to you. At least at a beer bar. I don't know if it's different at a tap room.
No.
Even though at a tap room it's probably the same because if there's long as there's some that you like and there's others that you don't, they're not going to be like angry at the brewery for making a beer that person doesn't like. Where I think if there's like food, sometimes people, it sounds like can be much more jerky, mean, entitled.
Yeah.
You know, like I didn't like this dish that I ordered, but I wouldn't ever think about that on a draft board.
I mean, we do talk about Untapped like that sometimes. Where people being like, "Well, I hate sage. I got this sage beer, 1 star." And be like, "What's wrong with you?" So there are probably some parallels, but I think in person or there's different forums too, like to talk about that stuff. Where we can like beer is much more communal. I feel like than discussing food is, where it's like I don't know. Like I also can't imagine being upset about ordering something at a restaurant and being like, "Well, I didn't like it." I'm like, "Well, I thought I was gonna like it, but it wasn't for me."
It was all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then being mad at the restaurant for it seems insane.
But sometimes you do have bad experiences at a restaurant and don't like the food and don't like it, and then you can be angry at the restaurant,
Sure. I think most of them...
Like I went to this one place and I waited for a half hour outside to get a beer. Like one of those things.
Sure. I think most of that stuff's service related. If I ever have a bad time at a place, it's more service related than food related. I don't know. But just serving beers is fun. People are having a nice time.
Yeah. I don't know.
Unless we get too drunk.
Sometimes I have had a little bit of the opposite. When I was down at the shore, I had something like the service.
That's Bizarro land.
The service was fine. It was all like, summer help, but they were attentive.
Yeah.
But then like the food would come out, and I think we got like coconut shrimp, and it was like literally on a white china dinner plate, and they had just been, it looked like you just dropped them from, I don't know, like 6 or 8 inches above. They scattered in and they weren't filling the thing.
Yeah.
They were just kind of like sliding around as he brought them over there, and like the server didn't put them on there. And I was like, what the hell is this? Like, this appetizer or whatever cost me like $19 or whatever it was. Like, go F yourself.
How much of that do you think is like that we also live in a city that is like has a very high quality of food in general and service?
Yeah.
Like
this place was cranking too. It was huge, and there were probably 70 staff on hand. I mean,
Right.
It was insane. So the other thing was like they didn't care.
Right.
They had a line. They had a 30-minute wait to get in. They were going to have a 30-minute wait tomorrow, and it didn't matter what I thought about the coconut shrimp appetizer.
Right.
But it showed that they knew.
Well,
that it
and
didn't
there's
matter.
also like seasonal help where like if it's a place like here where like something got scattered on there's probably like fixing it and like wanting to present it nicely. Where there's like and you're in a tourist place, right? Where it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Nothing matters. No one's coming
know.
back. So like maybe you won't come back next year, but honestly,
Damn
you
in-laws.
probably
They want to go to like
will.
2 different places.
Right.
They want to go that place and another place where half the food is served on like branded frisbees turned upside down, and then the food is served in it.
That
I think
sounds
it's
like
supposed
something
to be
you
for
would really
kids.
like.
Oh my gosh! So they were all angry at me because I said I don't want to eat out of a flippin' frisbee. I didn't say flippin', but I'm trying to help Serge here. But and then they got upset, so we went to the other place, and it was like, all right, well, what's the difference? Why am I, and what am I really complaining about? They're both essentially the same. Everything's going to be tan colored.
Right.
And
tan colored, fried, and maybe some melty stuff on.
and 50 to 75% too expensive.
Yeah. You're at the shore, dude.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, if it were up to me and Margaret, we would have probably gone to other places, but there's other people
Right.
whose tastes are terrible that we have to consider.
And hopefully they listen to the podcast.
Hopefully they can. They'll know what percentage I'm joking and what percentage I'm not.
0.
What? 0 what?
Good question.
Exactly.
Let them decide.
Let them decide. Why don't we take a break, and we'll come back with more of the Beer Temple podcast.
And we're back. Welcome back to the Beer Temple podcast. I am your co-host, Mike Shalau of Was Brewing. I'm here with your other co-host, Chris Quinn of the Beer Temple. That's one whole breath.
Wow.
You heard me take that.
I'm impressed. So there's a few things. Well, first of all, let me ask you. I follow friend of the show, Doug Valicki. Hey, Doug. Doug actually may be listening. And he's been talking about this for a long time, like this Tilray like continuing to collect brands, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just buying them up from whoever. Like, well, a lot of them I think came as from like AB, like unloading a bunch of acquisitions that they had. Some were their own. I mean, I think one of them was Shock Top, and just like buying decent sized craft breweries. And I think in the latest round, they bought some from Coors, and it was Miller Coors or Molson Coors, whatever it was. Atwater, Hop Valley, Terrapin, and Revolver, and they're now a top 5 craft brewing company.
Yeah.
According to the BA. You don't seem like you really care, just based on your posture and the fact you're giving the jerk off motion while I'm talking.
It's 2 jerk off motions.
Yeah, you're doing the Donald Trump dance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't in the macro sense of like who's really no one I know, the micro sense, I guess. No one I know. I don't consume any of these brands. I don't really care about it as far as it's going to affect my buying habits or it having any cultural impact on what craft beer is now. But there is something interesting that there is a brand that thinks that there is value in these companies that, like, 8 years ago, we probably would have cared about Terrapin a lot more, or we would have cared about a lot of these brands a lot more. And then they were consumed by the Borg.
Yep.
And now they're being literally spit out by the Borg.
Well, they're not just, because I think they come with, facilities and stuff. Sometimes, not always. But even despite that, now they are just becoming more and more brands. And I mean, we're at the point, and it's going to get only worse. And I say worse because I don't think it's good.
Yeah.
That is just going to be brand trading
Sure.
soon. It's just going to be like breweries are going to trade individual brands from their portfolio to other breweries. It's going to happen with craft. I think it's already happened to some degree, but it's going to be happening more.
It's also interesting to see how this company that is, I guess, by the BA's definition, technically independently owned, but is consuming all these brands and production numbers from non-independently owned, like non-craft brands. So this like cycle of in and out of like what are the, it's just broken the definition of what craft beer is, or any way that you can categorize
which always
it.
kind of
We need Don on to clear this out for us, but I don't know. It's Tilray is a cannabis company, like a Canadian cannabis company, right? That
yes.
You
mean a top 5 U.S. craft companies?
Right.
What do you mean? Right.
Well, I initially assumed when they were purchasing, these kind of decaying former craft brands,
moribund, perhaps.
Great word. That it was like, oh, this is a play to like make consumable THC or like a drinkable THC or like anything like that. But then like now I think they just are a craft brewery. Like there's a weird Fireman Capital-esque craft brewery where they don't care about the quality of any of these things. They're a holding company and they happen to like work in this thing that is now maybe we should be flattered. There is a value for a company like a PE company like that wants to own a bunch of craft brands. I don't know.
Right. I mean, that's the other thing. I guess maybe, and that's a good point about why I am like so, agnostic at best about all these. And I think it's because, like you said, I guess it might be an exciting story in that, like, wow, they're collecting all these brands. What do they want to do with them. Like, okay, they're waiting for weed to become federally legal. They're waiting for this. They're waiting for that. And then to be positioned with brands that are regionally recognized all over the country and just, like, have, like, local presence everywhere. But, like, but whatever. Whatever. And two, I think, but the point that you just said is they don't care about these companies from a quality or individual standpoint. They don't. I mean, and someone can say, "How do you know that about?" They don't. I don't care what anyone says, and I don't know for a fact, but I do know for a fact. Like, do I know the people at Tilright? No, they don't care. They don't care. They've decided to collect craft breweries for whatever reason, and the ones that speak to their heart have nothing to do with it, if any speak to their heart. That's not what it's about.
I think obviously we're not in the room with Tilray, but this feels like to me is a company that told some sort of story about being a consumer packaged goods company that did X volume of something and X revenue of something. And they raised a bunch of money to do it. And then the legalities they thought were going to be changed weren't changed. And now they're like, well, we're still a consumer packaged good company. And we have all this money. And you know what's a really distressed asset for a lot of these large companies that could make us seem like that we were in the adult entertainment beverage, like whatever the kind of weird segment you want to create? Oh, you know who's offloading a lot of stuff? ABI, Miller, Molson Coors. Like, they have all these like assets that we can like bring on and say, hey, this was a revenue of X amount of dollars a year, so we did the thing we said we were doing. It wasn't in the drinkable cannabis or legal cannabis world that we thought we could get into, but we still hit those numbers, so let us get our next round of financing.
And some of them do have, some maybe cannabis-friendly branding. I mean, Terrapin,
sure,
and Sweetwater and stuff like that.
Right.
But so what? Like, I mean, because here's the thing I think about. Like, I like, that's not true. I don't like it. I was going to be like, I like Sunny D. Does that mean I want to try Sunny D hard seltzer? Does that mean that I can't
believe you're putting Sunny D hard seltzer on blast like that.
I know. But it's like, but there's so many things that are like that. It's like, do you like Godiva chocolate? Well, then do you want to have the Godiva chocolate liqueur? I guess maybe it works. Those are maybe better versions than what I'm trying to think about. But there's so many like just like failed crossovers, and I think beer company into weed company like might, but I don't think it's necessarily gonna help.
No, I'm not even saying they're trying to buy these brands to use them to now market cannabis when it's legal. I think they failed at the cannabis part of it because the laws didn't change the way they thought they were going to, and now they had this fund to create this consumer packaged goods company, and they needed revenue and they needed volume, and they just bought stuff instead of like actually starting the cannabis company.
P doesn't start stuff; they just buy and extract, right? So.
Sure.
Yeah.
But like they need to grow that. The way you can grow revenue is either you make something that gets more and more popular, or you consume other things that already have the revenue. So I think for them to grow revenue, they've been consuming things that are adjacent to what the market they think they're playing in.
Sounds pretty Borg-esque.
It's very Borg-esque.
It's
a mini Borg though, so
it's a mini Borg with a lot of money to spend.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess the fact that they're buying something is certainly newsworthy, and the fact that we don't really talk about it at all. And we should get Doug on here because he's so he seems, I don't know if he actually is, he seems to be very excited about it.
We should get.
And when I say excited, I don't mean that necessarily positively. I mean, it's just like it's something that he shows interest in and wants to talk about. Like it's taking up, headspace for him.
And
it just doesn't for me, and maybe that's why Doug is smart and I'm not, but it's like, to me, it's like, who cares? The people who own them don't care about Terrapin.
culturally, they care about the revenues and the innovation they can bring.
Are any of these
Into
breweries going to see a cultural or in any way like product increase in relevance to higher than it's ever been before? Like, will they have all these companies already peaked in terms of relevancy?
I can't foresee a future where that's not the case. It's not the case that they've already peaked.
Maybe Sweetwater. Sweetwater's a pretty strong brand down in the South, but
Yeah.
I think they've already peaked for
should
that
get
420 pale or whatever.
Let's see if we can get Don on to actually give us some numbers of how these brands have done since their Tilray acquisitions.
Sure.
And get us some 3-tier merch.
And get us more 3-tier merch. I mean, you're flossed.
I'm
from
flossed head to toe.
You were in a full
It was a juicy
3-tier,
couture.
/ 3-tier tracksuit
Yeah,
at your opening
yeah. It was so soft on my butt.
with
It said
3-tier
across my
3-tier
butt cheeks.
giant sunglasses. I don't know what they were. Certainly designer. I don't know.
Yeah,
who
they were like a
Gucci
cross
or
between
something.
they're Gucci Pit Viper collaborations
Oh.
with 3-tier.
3-tier.
Yeah.
You were looking good.
It was tough because like the 3-tier went across the actual lenses, and I told Don I couldn't see anything.
He says, but they can
And he
see
said,
the 3-tier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wrote a letter into the show, and so I got what I got.
Yeah. That's cool.
It was cool of Rob Todd to show up that Don pulled that
That was cool.
card. He waited in line for beers for 35 minutes.
Did he really?
And then
What did he
ordered
get at the end?
Allagash White.
Yeah, he got one of the guest beers.
He brought his own Allagash Whites.
Can you open this for me?
He was just
What an
drinking
honor.
2 of them.
Really?
It was
It's an
in the-
honor.
He wasn't sure why he was in the line. It was really an honor.
Yeah.
I flipped the can upside down. I popped it open. I poured it for him.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So you did it.
He did it, but I like to. You know, when you tell stories about celebrities, you kind of put yourself into them. Like,
Right.
You're like, oh, I had this conversation with like Leonardo DiCaprio. Like, really, you just saw him. From 35 feet away.
So it's like when Farley's the bus driver. No, you didn't.
Yeah.
So really what happened was at the time of your opening, Rob Todd served himself a Allagash White in Portland, Maine.
and I thought about it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I thought about it and really wished he was at my tap room.
Okay. Well, that's also
That's pretty
really cool.
close.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
But you were flossed out and you looked good.
Thank you.
And we need to get more 3-tier merch. And
We've been keeping most of our beers cool in a 90-gallon 3-tier merch Yeti cooler.
that's cool.
Yeah.
Literally.
It's very cool.
Yeah. But yeah, Tilray's the best, right? We all agree on that.
Top 5.
All their brands are relevant.
It's really
and
it's
the ones
gotta
that aren't
be-
relevant are soon to be relevant.
It's got to be really cool for all of the, independent brewery owners out there who have worked really hard to go through all the bullshit of like growing your brand, working with distributors, getting them to actually care about your brand, like getting it out there in the world, like taking on debt, taking on investors, growing to become like a top 50 brewery in the world. And Tilray just comes in and, just is the top 5 craft brand by buying all of these distressed assets off of larger breweries. That's got to feel great for
That's why you get up in the morning.
like a really independently owned thing like Athletic.
Right. Right. Sephora.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
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 It's got to feel great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think I think you hit the nail on the head. Is they don't care about the quality of the uniqueness or the individuality of their brands. So why should I? Because to say they don't care about their quality, I'm sure they do care about the quality, but I don't think that they have anybody in place coming down and being like, you need to get your quality up, because I don't think the quality's there.
Well,
I don't think they care about quality that way.
Well, there's like quality QC and quality like brand spec and quality like these are not like infected beers, and then there's capital Q quality of like the flavor impact and the like, I don't know. There's like different quality can be used in two different ways. I'm
Just
sure
like innovation.
Innovation can be used in an innovative number of ways.
It's true.
Thank you.
Well, I want to know if anyone out there is in any way, and I mean in any way, excited or intrigued or interested in this Tilray thing that's happening. Please, because there might be something that's interesting about it that we're just not thinking of.
Absolutely.
And if that is the case, you should write us a letter, and you can send it to us. First of all, you got to get a piece of paper out. You got to start writing it. Mm-hmm. Then you put it in an envelope. You put a forever stamp on it. You know, hopefully you bought it a long time ago, and you've got a good value for it now.
Money.
Now you're making money by sending us a letter. Think of it. You're making money. You can't afford not to send us a handwritten letter. And you send it to the Beer Temple, 3173 North Elston Avenue in Chicago, Illinois, 60618. The address is in the show notes. Or if you don't have any forever stamps, you can send it to insiders@craftbeertemple.com, which is what somebody did. So, Aaron from Aaron Munster. I don't know if he's like Eddie's friend or relative, I guess, or whatever. But however you sign your e-letters is how I will refer to you. So this has been signed Aaron Munster. So that's what I will refer to him as. And Aaron writes, esteemed beer peers, this electronic letter serves a dual purpose, both of which are probably from topics that maybe can be considered old by some. That's totally fine. We love that.
You found friends. Yes.
Exactly. First, as I was enjoying a beer over dinner to celebrate my son's birthday, my eyes were drawn to my nearly empty beer glass in the aftermath of my enjoyment of its contents. Lacing. Maybe it was from the high-quality beer that had formerly been inhabited the glass. Maybe the restaurant just skimps on the cleaning chemicals that Mike blames for a dearth of lacing.
You should skimp on the cleaning chemicals. Don't overuse the cleaning chemicals. That's how you get bad lacing.
My theory, the beer was zombie dust. And zombie dust is still always up and to the right, even for lacing.
Hey.
Second, I enjoyed your not too old, but kind of old episode where you recommended several beer experiences that are worthwhile for visitors and locals alike. All that you mentioned were worthy. However, there was one that, to my knowledge, is absolutely uniquely to Chicago, and I believe also unique to the world. The Moody Tongue Dining Room, the world's first Michelin 2-starred brewery, offers a 12-course fine dining experience where every course is paired with a different beer. A Hokkaido scallop with orange blossom Belgian blonde, foie gras with cherry Berliner Weiss, paella with a Dai Pilsner. All beers served in style-appropriate glassware, and a staff that can speak to both the beer and the food. An absolutely unique and amazing 3-hour-plus dining bacchanal. Boogie to the max. I'm forever grateful to my wife for the gift of a Moody Tongue dining experience for a Valentine's Day 2020 gift. We ate there in March of 2020 and didn't eat out at another restaurant for several months. But part of what makes Chicago so great is the spectrum of beer options. A Schlitz and a cheeseburger at the Billy Goat on Lower Michigan. Day baseball and pregame beers at Nisei. Great local breweries and brew pubs across the city and the suburbs. And an officially certified fancy pants fine dining beer pairing experience where diners can enjoy an always topped off aperitif pilsner to cleanse the palate between courses. What more can you ask for? Aaron Munster. That is true. Thank you, Aaron. I have not been to Moody Tongue. I have a gift card that my mother got me for Christmas that I need to use. So I will be reporting on whether Aaron is full of it or if the foie gras with cherry Berliner Weiss actually is a good pairing. But it is crazy that we do have a Michelin 2-star brewery here. And, yeah, I mean, it probably should be at least mentioned. Like, oh, yeah, and there's also a Michelin 2-star brewery here. That's a dining experience.
Yeah. You also have to mention that there have been a lot of allegations of very bad behavior from people there. There's a good beer hunting story about some sexual assault from owners there. A lot of industry chatter about abusive practices to employees. So while it is a very unique thing and a very, interesting thing to have that there's a 2-star Michelin brewery, you can't go without saying that there's something else going on and some other.
Well, let me ask. Do you think that is why people don't seem to talk about Moody Tongue as much? Because I don't think it is.
No, I think the beer itself is not particularly interesting. I think, but you can't.
I don't know.
Not say that people in the beer industry knowing that there's all these allegations around it and not wanting to support a place where there's those credible stories of sexual abuse and also employee abuse, despite how good the food could be or maybe, is because part of the reason I drink and enjoy craft beer or locally made or artisanal things is to want to support the people that do it too, and it's tough to do that there.
Yeah, and it's probably, well, I mean, shame on me. I am too ignorant of a lot of that stuff. I know it, but I don't know of the ins and outs. And it's yeah. I do think though. I mean, well, let me ask. Do you not want to talk about it anymore?
We can talk about other ideas of unique Chicago experiences.
You don't want to talk about Moody Tongue anymore.
I mean, we don't. You can go find the article. If you just Google Moody Tongue and good beer hunting, you'll be able to read the accounts. I don't want to speak for anyone who told their stories in that article. So it's tough because, of course, you want something like that. Like a Michelin-starred brewery is one of the coolest things you can have. But it does come in this a cloud where I feel like I can't morally support it.
I know, yeah, totally. I do know that the owner or the head brewer, Jared, has been a controversial figure since I've known him. Just like, I'm not saying like criminally controversial necessarily. I'm just saying like just generally controversial. Yeah, it's, but I mean, I have a gift card and I do plan on using it. So, okay. Maybe I'll think differently when I read the the good beer hunting. Although I guess I probably should use it anyway because now they've made the money.
I've already
Now
made
I
the
should.
money. You just got to take it back.
I got to take as much of it as I can back.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I guess. Well, it would have been maybe awkward to have asked Dave Dahl about it when he was here.
Yeah,
He's their
that
head
was
of
not the
ops.
time to talk to him about it.
Yeah, no, especially in that scenario.
Yeah.
But I still
And
want
it's like we've talked about this. Like it's tough to totally say you should never go there because they employ people who have done nothing wrong. But if you read the articles and know the people, it's tough to not think about it and not know what happened and to support it. And probably not saying you shouldn't, or you probably shouldn't. But
So you are saying you should.
yeah, I mean,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, we can move on from that. Then I do want to thank Aaron for sending in the letter, though.
Yeah, thank you so much. There's also other more positive, unique beer experiences that can be had in Chicago that we can talk about that aren't
Just
that one.
his one is invalid.
No, his experience is not invalid, obviously, but it's tough to recommend it for other people.
Sure.
I mean, there's so many unique beer experiences you can have. Going to Hop Leaf, having mussels, and drinking with some of their house beers are beautiful, unique experiences. I mean, coming here, talking to people that work behind the bar and asking, like, what are they really into is a unique, wonderful beer experience to have.
Yeah, I think there's a few cities where we can do this. It isn't unique, but obviously the individual places are going to be unique this week. I had some friends in town, and we started from my house, and we walked about 3 minutes and went to Dovetail. Then we walked about 5 minutes and went to the Long Room, another great bar.
Yeah.
Then we walked maybe another 7 minutes and went to Tunes, another really fun
He's our
bar.
neighbor. He lives right by the Taproom. He's been in a couple of times.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he owns Tunes.
And then walked another 5 minutes and was at the G-Man by Wrigley. And, made our way all the way to Wrigley, which is what our destination was. And was great. Like, oh, my gosh, just like every few minutes there's a really cool bar here. So very fortunate.
Yeah.
But no, are those like necessarily... Like, do you drive just to go to Tunes? No, you don't.
But to do that whole thing as an experience, I think is pretty
Right.
cool. I was in Milwaukee. This is obviously not Chicago, but I was in Milwaukee recently picking up some brewing equipment. And to drive through neighborhoods in Milwaukee and see, like, literal corner bars that were still open and still, like, operational is really cool. Like, I think that's, like, what Chicago, Milwaukee, like, down the Midwest does better than most other places is casual drinking establishments that more and more have really, really cool craft beer options or really good cocktails or things like that you can like. Maybe Philly does it too. When you were at Meeting House, like that's kind of in that vein as well. But you can have those experiences. They can be tap rooms. They can be bars. Like what you did was a mixture of both. Like that's a cool thing you can do here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Experience the culture of both the city and like the drinking culture.
Yeah, I just have that letter. So, yeah, for today.
Didn't mean to kill it, but
It's okay.
yeah.
Is there anything you would like to talk about before we get out of here? We're having a meeting afterwards to line up our shows for the next several weeks.
That's right.
Have some actual guests.
Yeah.
you
Some
know.
ideas.
Yeah.
It's good to be back. I forgot how much I really love doing this show with you.
Oh,
because
he's
we
just
took so much
saying
time
that.
off. That's not true. I mean it. I feel it. And you, Serge.
Oh, how sweet.
We won't have Serge for a minute, though. So there's going to be a little Serge Jr.
Little fade.
A mini fade.
Yeah, mini fade. Yeah.
Phaedra.
My guess. Yeah. So that's about it. Next time we talk to you, I guarantee we will have won the podcast award
Or they haven't
for
done
whatever
it.
it is. I hope I submitted for the right section as well.
I hope we get rejected for submitting for like best written article.
I mean, it's not a 0% chance, but I don't think I did that. There were definitely questions that I didn't understand, like who is your publisher? I wrote myself. I don't know what that really means.
Podbean.
Yeah, there were other like questions that I just didn't understand.
Yeah, I think you got that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's okay. So we'll have good news, and I don't know. I think the prize is money. I just want a trophy.
Fat check. Oh, okay.
I want a trophy.
Yeah.
I want a trophy.
Yeah, we gotta have a trophy.
Yeah.
It's not going to be as cool as the Golden Sparkler, but it'll be pretty good.
I think it is a decent sized check. I think it's like several $100s. I don't know,
like
$200, $400
for part of the equipment that you bought.
Yeah, see, that's what a smart person would do. I want to like buy a custom wrestling belt that says "Best Podcast" or something with it, because you could buy a badass wrestling belt with it and like hold it up on have it up on the wall.
I take back what I said. We have to do that. Take pictures of it over our shoulders.
How about this? If anyone's still listening, if that's something you could send, like if we win, what should we do with the winnings? Doesn't need to be a trophy. What should we do with
besides
the winnings?
Give it to you, obviously.
I mean, I guess.
What should we inscribe on the belt?
No, I think there might be other ideas. I mean, I just thought of that one right now, but I'm trying to see like what do you win? Let's look. Rules and categories are right here. So if you win, you get $400.
That's a good amount of money.
Second place is $200.
What'd you do with it last time?
I don't know if it was that much, but I just put it into future years of membership. So they asked if I was a membership. We still might be.
Probably.
Maybe.
The answer to that question.
I said no. So, yeah. So $400. I mean, that's decent.
How much Headhunter can that buy us?
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Surge has already branded a pretty nice wrestling belt, the power of AI. But $200 for second prize, $75 for third prize. If we win second or third, the money is going directly into the podcast. Because I don't need to celebrate that.
No.
But if we win,
we're going to give it back
place,
if we take second or third, right?
Yeah, we're going to give it back.
You're not first, you're last.
Or to send it to whoever wins. Whoever wins, we'll send it to.
Yeah.
And say you can have ours as well. If we win the first prize, $400, what should we do with it? Come on, guys.
We'll do whatever you say.
And
whatever
gals.
you tell us.
Come on. Tell us what we should do. And think creatively.
Pay Matt Cole.
Pay Matt Cole to come on. Take the train out to Cleveland,
Ohio.
and do it.
And just show up.
Just show up with all our podcast gear.
Yeah. Michael Moore style on his doorstep.
Yeah, and maybe a piece of paper showing that we won.
Yeah.
And we're two-time winners.
The
We
award.
should also see how many two-time winners there are. I hope there's none. And then we
Can't be.
We would be the only two-time winner. Be great.
Yeah.
All right. I think we're proving why there's not the best chance that we are going to win. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. We will see you next week. So long.
Remember this is what we wanted. Remember this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again. Remember this is what we wanted. Remember this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again. Remember this is what we wanted. Remember this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again.